A very popular topic in Python, it's about Lambda functions. Probably you've seen somewhere those functions with a reserved word Lambda, which has a weird signature. So Lambda functions are anonymous, on-the-fly, unnamed functions. So they are defined functions as we have a definition for them, and they binding a name to a specific function object. So Lambda only create a function object, so we just have the object itself, right? And there are some benefits of using Lambda functions, such as we avoid defining a lot of those small functions that we just use it once and never again. We declutter our local namespace because it's just on that specific function reserved space we have all the scope for it. And we have all the implementation is just one line, and this I guess can be either good or bad for you, right? So let's say we have this function right here. We take two numbers, add x and add y. We return the sum. So when we call the function, we just return the value and print it out. No surprise there. That's pretty much how we already know how to do it, right? For Lambda function, we can have anonymously Lambda functions defined in which we don't define a name, or we can define a name. So in this case here, we are defining a name for our function, right? So we're gonna say, hey, this here, it's a Lambda function. And what's gonna do? It's gonna take x and y, and for these values, we're gonna just sum x and y, nothing more. All right, and after that we're gonna do the following. We're gonna print this as a Lambda function because we want to see the result of it. And what's going to be the value of it? The value of it is the function that we define. Let's just roll over here a little bit so we have more space. So what is the function Lambda that we define? So it's a Lambda function in which we pass two values, 2 and 3, right? So instead of having a definition, name of the function, returning on anything, I can simply define that my object, and this object receive two arguments, and those arguments are added and then passed to add lamb here. And if we run this, we'll see that pretty much the result is the same. This is not exactly how we run things usually for Lambda functions. It's more common to have an anonymous function. So it's something like, hey, we're going to do the same thing here, but then this is going to be anonymous function. And then what we're going to do is, we're going to do directly as in Lambda, we're going to receive two parameters, two arguments, x and y. We're going to sum those guys, x and y. And as we see here, let's encapsulate this, of course. And as we have it right here, and then we pass it as parameter for that function, 2 and 3. So what we're saying is, this function that we are defining on the fly and without a name, it's going to receive two arguments, which is expected to receive two, like x and y, and we sum those and return it to this print here, right? And if we run that, we'll also have that the same value as 5, is the same value that we had before. And needless to say, this works pretty much the same way with any data object that we want, right? So let's say here we have a function, it's called Lambda, which takes, takes a variable cake, for example, and then we sum two cakes. And then instead of doing this, we go there and pass a string like cake, right? And if we go there and run this, we'll see that cake is there because for it received one value and then sum those values, right? And Lambda functions, they are pretty useful. You can create any logic that you want, right? So let's say, let's say we have a given list here, and this list, it starts at 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we go there and I'm going to print it out, those values. we're going to make a list of of a map, and this map here is a lambda function. So this lambda function here receives a number, and this number right here is the number itself times the number, right? And then we're gonna go there and pass as an argument for this, we're gonna pass the list that we already have there, that was x. And if we run this, we have the map of a list. First, we did a map between between the lambda function and the list that we had, and then we transformed this into a list so we could print it out the map that we have. All right, so it mapped all the instance with the x within this new function definition. We also can have other things, like let's say we define a range here, and this range goes to from 2 to 20, and then we'll say that this result, we're gonna have an operation like, okay, we're gonna have a lambda function x, and this function right here, it's gonna just filter out the values that are interesting for us. So x, if this here is an even number, we're gonna go there and take that. All right, the thing is, we need to make this a list, of course, and then we filter using this function. So our filter towards a, it's gonna be the lambda function that we defined. So for every value that a, we're going to apply the function that we have here for lambda, pretty much the same thing as map, but now we're using filter, and then we're going to store this into result. And if we go there and print it out result, so we go and print it out, and there you go, we have only the even values according to our lambda function. Okay, so thank you and happy coding.